Hey guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in white, and we are learning to find the vertex of a given parabola. So vertex, another way of saying that, you may have heard it as being called the turning point, and that is the point where the gradient goes from positive to negative. So it means it changes directions. And the red one, it's going down, so it's got a negative gradient, and then it's going up, and it's got a positive gradient. Hence why it's a turning point. The turning points, they can either be maximums or minimums, depending on the graph. So if you have a look at the blue graph, that there is the maximum, because that's the highest value that parabola, the highest y value that parabola will ever reach. And conversely, when you're looking at the red graph, well, that's a minimum, because that's the lowest value that parabola will ever meet. So we quickly went through some definitions. So if you haven't, make sure you pause the video to get those definitions down: vertex, turning point, and maximum and minimum. But let's get into the maths behind some of these. So the first one we're going to focus on is the red parabola. And I already know that the formula is going to be x plus 2 and then x plus 3. So you'll either be given the formula or we've actually got the skills to determine that formula. So our equation, x plus 2, x plus 3. And I've written 1 there because the first step is solve for the x-intercepts. And I'll explain why that's important in a bit, but at the x-intercepts, we know the corresponding y value is going to be equal to 0. So 0 is going to be equal to x plus 2, x plus 3. And that means the x values, -2 and -3. So I'm going to change pen color for this step because it is important. The next step, step 2, is finding the midpoint. So finding the midpoint of the x-intercepts. And we can do this because every parabola is symmetrical. So if you've got one point here, it's going to be the mirror image of another point on the other side. So when you're dealing with the x-intercepts, if we've got this value here, which would be x1, the mirror image is always going to be x2. So the point exactly in the middle of those is the corresponding value of the vertex. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be calculating the x value just there where I put that little green dot. Okay, and the way to do that is you do x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So that's going to be -2 plus -3 divided by 2. That's -5 divided by 2, and that's -2.5. So we found the corresponding x value. And the final step that we need to do is we need to plug that in to find the equivalent y value. So we've got our initial equation, y is equal to x plus 2 and x plus 3. We know at the vertex that the x values, well, we've just calculated them above. That's -2.5, so let's put that into our equation. -2.5 plus 2, -2.5 plus 3. So it does look like it's going to be a decimal or a fraction. So the first part, well, that's going to become -0.5, and we're going to multiply that by 0.5. And those as fractions will be -1/2 times +1/2. And that means the corresponding y value will be -1/4. And that's the y equivalent. So what we've got is, we'll change pen color again actually. We'll go back to the white pen. So the coordinate is always x comma y. And we figured out the x value of the vertex. Well, that's -2.5. And the y value, that's -1/4. And that would be the coordinate of that vertex. So let's have a look. So if we go down, let's go back to the y-axis. Well, that does look about -1/4. So I'm happy with that. And if we just use our judgment, we can see 1, 2, 3, and that looks in the middle of the -2 and -3. So it looks like I'm pretty happy with that vertex as well. So that's the first step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to clear our working. We're going to get into the blue one, or the blue graph, and then we'll have an opportunity to get into questions. And if you haven't, please pause the video. Make sure you get down the working and examples as well, including those 3 important steps that are helpful. Okay, our screen is cleared and we're getting into our second example. Just a reminder, we're looking at the graphs for both of these, but there may be times where you're just given the equation and you'll be able to do the exact same process. Find the x-intercepts, find the x value, and then find the y value. So that is just a reminder, we are given the graphs, but you should be able to do them both ways. Okay, so first step, I suppose, let's come up with the equation. We can clearly see the x-intercepts, and we know that it's negative. So let's go negative x plus 5, x minus 2. So that's our equation. Let's put that into our first step, which is finding the x-intercepts. Okay, so y is equal to negative x plus 5, x minus 2. So don't forget, you maybe put this in the expanded form, so you may need to factorize to get to the answer. And at that point, we know that y is going to be equal to 0. So 0 is going to be equal to negative x plus 5, x minus 2. And we're going to solve for that. Don't forget, anything in the front, it doesn't actually matter what that is. So x1 is equal to negative 5, and x2 is equal to negative or positive 2. Okay, we'll change pen color. The second step, hopefully you remember the second step from the first video. It's all about finding the x value of the coordinate. And what we're going to do then is we're going to go x1 plus x2. So these are the values we calculated above. And that'll find us the exact middle, or the midpoint between those two intercepts. So that will be negative 5 plus 2 divided by 2. Well, that's negative 3 divided by 2. And we'll leave that as a fraction as well. Oh, actually, let's convert it to a decimal just to make the maths next a bit easier. So let's change pen colors. Question 3, or part 3. Now that we found the x value, so we know that that point there is negative 1/2. So we now need to go up to find the corresponding y value. Now we can do that by putting that value into our original equation. So y is going to be equal to negative x plus 5, x minus 2. So let's put negative 1.5 into both of these equations. So we've done that. Let's solve or figure out each bracket. So we've got negative 1.5 plus 5 becomes 3.5. And then we've got negative 1.5 minus 2 makes negative 3.5. And basically this minus sign and this minus sign, again, cancel each other out because two negatives multiplied by each other become a positive. So we've got 3.5 times 3.5, which comes to 12.25. And to be honest, I did pause the video to double check that maths with the calculator. And the final step, let's change pen color back to the white one to finish it off. The coordinate of anything will always be x comma y. Well, we know that the x value is negative 1.5. Figure that out there. And we've just figured out the y value, 12.25. And if you have a look at our graph, you'll be able to reconcile that. The height of that, it does appear to be over 12. And the x value does appear to be negative 0.5. So hopefully you found this video on finding the vertex useful. Just a reminder, we were given graphs. If you're not given a graph, don't let your mind explode. Follow the same process. You don't need a graph to figure this out. Okay, let's get into heaps of practice.